Nothing bonds a marriage like a day of overpriced beer and body odor. That's what I told myself as I watched my girlfriend Tara Mason flirt with every guy in a 50-foot radius at the Rock Creek Music Festival. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, Eric Rick Gannon, 38-year-old IT network engineer, standing in a field full of wannabe rebels while my own personal rebellion was brewing in my chest like bad gas station coffee. "Rick, loosen up!" Tara shouted over the screaming guitars of some band called Death's Doorknob, or something equally ridiculous. Her blonde hair caught the afternoon sun as she danced, beer sloshing from her plastic cup onto the trampled grass. "You look like you're at a funeral." Maybe because I was. The funeral of my dignity. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Tara's friends, Lacey and Molly, flanked her like backup singers in this twisted performance. Lacey, the perpetual party girl with fake eyelashes that could sweep floors, leaned into Molly's ear. Even over the music, I caught fragments. Old flames, new sparks, followed by their trademark cackle. My friend Pete nudged my shoulder. "Dude, your face looks like you swallowed a lemon wrapped in barbed wire." "Just enjoying the show," I muttered, taking a long pull from my beer. The bitter taste matched my mood perfectly. That's when I saw him, Dave Keller, 6'3" of pure gym rat arrogance, pushing through the crowd like he owned the place. His tank top showcased arms the size of my torso, and his cocky grin suggested he knew exactly what effect he had on people. Specifically, on my girlfriend. Tara's ex-boyfriend had arrived. "Well, well, well," Dave's voice boomed as he approached our little group. "If it isn't the beautiful Tara Mason and her husband." The pause before husband felt like a knife twist. He said it the way someone might say pet hamster or unfortunate rash. "Dave!" Tara's voice pitched higher, the way it did when she was excited or lying. Sometimes both. "I didn't know you were coming." Liar. She'd been checking her phone all morning, applying makeup with the precision of a surgeon and asking me 3 times if her outfit made her look fun and carefree. Now I knew for whom. "Wouldn't miss it," Dave said, his eyes never leaving Tara. "Remember when we used to come to these together? Good times?" Lacey and Molly exchanged glances that could have powered the stage lights. Pete shifted uncomfortably beside me, probably sensing the testosterone-fueled disaster about to unfold. "That was a long time ago," I said, stepping closer to Tara. It was a pathetic territorial display, like a chihuahua barking at a Great Dane. Dave's grin widened. "Not that long. What's it been, Tara? 2 years?" 3, she corrected quickly. Too quickly. The band launched into their next song, something about broken hearts and burning bridges. How fitting. The crowd pressed closer to the stage, forcing our awkward little reunion into a tighter circle. I watched Dave's eyes roam over Tara like he was appraising merchandise he'd once owned. "You look amazing," he told her, completely ignoring my presence. "Better than ever." Tara blushed. Actually blushed. I'd been with this woman for 8 months, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd made her blush. Probably because I'd never been tall enough or muscular enough or whatever enough to trigger that response. "You're not looking too bad yourself," she replied, her voice taking on a flirtatious tone I recognized but hadn't heard directed at me in weeks. Pete grabbed my arm. "Let's get another beer, man." "I'm fine right here." But I wasn't fine. I was watching my girlfriend transform before my eyes, becoming more animated, more alive than she'd been all day. Her laughter grew louder, her gestures more dramatic. She touched Dave's arm when she talked, leaned in close when he responded. "So what are you up to these days?" she asked him. "Opened my own gym downtown. Keller's Fitness. Business is booming." He flexed casually, as if the movement was unconscious. It wasn't. What about you? Still with that marketing firm? Event planning now. I organized the charity auction last month that raised $50,000 for the children's hospital. That's my girl, Dave said, always making a difference. My girl. The words hit like a physical blow. I wanted to correct him, to assert my claim, but something in Tara's expression stopped me. She looked pleased by the possessive phrase. The crowd around us grew rowdier as the beer flowed and the music pounded. Someone bumped into me, spilling beer down my shirt. I looked down at the spreading stain, then up to find Dave watching with amusement. "Careful there, buddy," he said. "These festivals can be rough for smaller guys." Smaller guys. There it was, the first direct shot. "I can handle myself," I replied, but my voice came out weaker than intended. "I'm sure you can." Dave's tone suggested the opposite. Tara always did like the intellectual type. The way he said intellectual made it sound like a disease. Lacey, never one to miss an opportunity to stir the pot, jumped in. "Dave, you should see Rick's apartment. It's like a computer museum exploded." "Fascinating," Dave said, his interest clearly elsewhere. His attention had returned to Tara, who was swaying to the music with increasing enthusiasm. The lead singer grabbed the microphone. "All right, Rock Creek, who's ready to get crazy?" The crowd roared approval. Tara raised her cup high, beer sloshing everywhere. "I love this song," she shouted, though I was pretty sure she'd never heard it before in her life. That's when Dave made his move. "Want a better view?" he asked Tara, gesturing toward the stage. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering, he crouched down slightly and patted his shoulders. "Hop on." Like old times. My stomach dropped. I'd seen photos of them together at previous festivals, Tara perched on Dave's shoulders like some kind of conquering queen. It was one of the things that had always bothered me about their relationship, the casual way he'd hoist her up, showing off his strength while giving her the best view in the house. "Oh, I couldn't," Tara said, but she was already moving toward him. "Come on," Lacey urged. "Live a little." "Rick won't mind," Molly added, shooting me a look that suggested she hoped I would mind. A lot. I should have said something, should have objected, made a scene, asserted myself. Instead, I stood frozen as Tara handed her beer to Lacey and positioned herself behind Dave. "You sure about this?" she asked, but she was already placing her hands on his shoulders. "Trust me," Dave said. "I've got you." He lifted her effortlessly, his muscles barely straining under her weight. Tara squealed with delight as she rose above the crowd, her view of the stage suddenly unobstructed. People around us turned to look, some smiling at the display, others taking photos. "This is incredible," Tara shouted down at us. Dave was grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "Better than being stuck down here with us mere mortals, right?" "So much better," Tara agreed, throwing her arms wide as if she could embrace the entire festival. That's when she said it, the words that would replay in my head for the next 48 hours like a broken record of humiliation. "You're so much taller and better than my husband." The crowd around us erupted in laughter. Someone whooped. Another person started chanting, "Upgrade! Upgrade!" The lead singer, apparently having heard the comment through the monitors, grinned and pointed at our little group. "Looks like someone just got traded in for a newer model," he announced to the entire festival. "Hope the husband's got good insurance." More laughter, more pointing, more photos being taken. I stood there, frozen in the spotlight of my own humiliation, watching my girlfriend laugh along with the crowd that was laughing at me. Pete grabbed my arm. "Rick, let's go." But I couldn't move. I was trapped in this moment, watching Tara beam with joy at being elevated, literally and figuratively, by her ex-boyfriend while I remained on the ground, diminished in every possible way. "Rick!" Dave called out, his voice dripping with false concern. "You don't mind sharing, do you?" Sharing. Like Tara was a toy we were passing back and forth. The band launched into their finale, pyrotechnics exploding overhead. In the flickering light, I saw Tara's face clearly. She wasn't thinking about me at all. She was lost in the moment, in the attention, in the feeling of being desired by someone who could literally lift her above the crowd. That's when I made my decision. If I'd had a microphone, I would have dropped it. Instead, I dropped my pride. Same sound. I turned and walked away, pushing through the crowd of laughing faces and pointing fingers. Behind me, I could hear Tara still shouting with joy, Dave's booming laughter, and the crowd's continued amusement at my expense. Pete caught up with me at the parking lot. "Rick, wait up!" "I'm done," I said, fumbling for my keys. "Come on, man. She was just having fun." "At my expense." She was drunk. People say stupid things when they're drunk. I looked back toward the festival grounds, where the final song was reaching its crescendo. Somewhere in that crowd, my girlfriend was still perched on her ex-boyfriend's shoulders, probably forgetting I existed. "Yeah," I said, starting my car. "They sure do." The drive home was a blur of streetlights and self-recrimination. Every red light gave me another chance to replay the scene, to imagine what I should have done differently. I could have pulled her down, could have made a scene, could have punched Dave in his perfect jaw. But I hadn't. I'd done what I always did, retreated into my shell and let the world happen around me. My phone buzzed as I pulled into my apartment complex. A text from an unknown number, but I recognized the background immediately. It was a selfie of Tara and Dave, arms wrapped around each other, both grinning like teenagers who'd just pulled off the perfect prank. The caption read, "Best night ever." I stared at the photo for a long moment, noting how perfectly Tara fit against Dave's chest, how natural they looked together. Then I deleted the message and blocked the number. But as I climbed the stairs to my apartment, I realized something had changed inside me. The humiliation was still there, burning like acid in my chest. But underneath it, something else was growing. Something that felt dangerously like resolve. The first thing I did when I got home was pour myself 3 fingers of whiskey and sit in my kitchen, staring at my phone. The second thing I did was pour 3 more fingers and start scrolling through social media. Big mistake. The photos were everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My humiliation had gone digital. There was Tara on Dave's shoulders, arms spread wide like she was flying. There was Dave grinning up at her with obvious adoration. And there, in the background of several shots, was me, looking like a kicked puppy moments before I slunk away. The comments were the worst part. Relationship goals. Someone's getting lucky tonight. Poor husband, lol. Trade up, girl. Each comment felt like a small knife twist. I took another drink and kept scrolling, like picking at a scab I couldn't leave alone. Lacey had posted a video. Of course she had. The girl documented her bathroom breaks if she thought they'd get likes. This video showed the exact moment Tara made her taller and better comment, complete with the crowd's laughter and the lead singer's response. She'd captioned it, "When your friend remembers what she's been missing. Yas festival vibes, living her best life. Sorry, not sorry." The video had been shared 43 times and counting. My phone rang. Pete. "You see this shit?" he asked without preamble. "I'm looking at it now. Lacey's a real piece of work posting that video. And the comments." He trailed off. "Yeah. Look, man, I know this sucks, but maybe you should call Tara. Let her explain." "Explain what? That she publicly humiliated me for laughs? She was drunk, Rick. People do stupid things when they're drunk." I'd heard that excuse already. It was starting to lose its charm. "Where do you think she is right now, Pete?" Silence. "Because I'm betting she's not at home, alone, regretting her choices." "You don't know that." But I did know. The same way I knew the sun would rise tomorrow and my coffee would taste bitter. Tara was with Dave, and they were probably laughing about the whole thing. After Pete hung up, I poured another drink and continued my digital self-torture. Someone had created a meme using a screenshot from Lacey's video. It showed me in the background with the caption, "When you realize you're the placeholder boyfriend." 47 shares and counting. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from Tara. "Rick, where did you go? We need to talk." I stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. "I went home. You seemed busy." "Don't be like that. I was just having fun." "At my expense." "It was a joke." "God, you're so sensitive." Sensitive. There was that word again. The catch-all excuse for every shitty thing people did to each other. "You're too sensitive. Can't you take a joke? Lighten up." "Where are you?" I typed. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came. "Dave's giving me a ride home. My phone died and I couldn't find you." Dave's giving her a ride. In what car? The question gnawed at me, but I didn't ask. I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. "We'll talk tomorrow," she finally sent. But we didn't talk the next day. Or the day after. Tara's silence stretched on, broken only by her continued activity on social media. She posted photos from brunch with Lacey and Molly, all 3 of them looking like they'd shared the world's best secret. She shared articles about living authentically and not settling for less than you deserve. Each post felt like a message aimed directly at me. Pete stopped by my apartment on Tuesday evening with pizza and beer, the universal male remedy for relationship disasters. "You look like hell," he said, surveying my appearance. I hadn't shaved in 3 days, and my apartment looked like a tornado had hit it. Feel worse. "When's the last time you talked to Tara?" "Saturday night. She said we'd talk, but..." I gestured vaguely at my phone, which had remained stubbornly silent. Pete opened 2 beers and handed me one. "Maybe that's for the best, man. Maybe this is the universe telling you something." "Like what?" "Like maybe you dodged a bullet. Anyone who'd humiliate their boyfriend in public for laughs." He shrugged. "That's not someone you want to build a life with." I wanted to argue, to defend Tara, but the words wouldn't come. How do you defend the indefensible? "The whole thing's gone viral," I said instead. "My humiliation is entertainment for half the city. It'll blow over. Something else will happen and people will move on." But I wasn't sure I could move on. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tara on Dave's shoulders, heard her voice saying those words. "You're so much taller and better than my husband." Wednesday brought a new development. I was at work, trying to focus on a network security audit, when my phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged me in a Facebook post. It was Molly, sharing photos from what looked like a dinner party. The caption read, "Amazing night with amazing friends. Some people just know how to live life to the fullest." There, in the 3rd photo, were Tara and Dave. They were sitting close together at what appeared to be an upscale restaurant. Dave's arm casually draped around Tara's shoulders. She was laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting on his chest. The timestamp showed the photo had been taken the night before. Tuesday. The same night I'd been sitting in my apartment, waiting for her to call. I stared at the photo until my vision blurred. They looked happy, natural, like a real couple. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Rick? It's Dave." My blood turned to ice. "What do you want?" "Look, man, I think we need to talk about Tara." "There's nothing to talk about." "I think there is. See, the thing is..." He paused, and I could hear traffic in the background. "I borrowed your car last night. Tara said you wouldn't mind." "My car. My fucking car." "You what?" "She said you guys had broken up, that you were cool with it. But then I heard you might be upset, and I wanted to make sure there were no hard feelings." No hard feelings. He'd stolen my girlfriend and my car, and he was worried about hard feelings. "Where's my car, Dave?" "That's the thing. I had a little accident." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What kind of accident?" "Nothing major, just a little fender bender. Some damage to the front bumper. Maybe the headlight." You crashed my car. I'll pay for the repairs, of course. I'm not a deadbeat. But he was a car thief, and apparently, Tara was an accessory. I want my keys back. Now. Sure, no problem. I'll have Tara drop them off. The line went dead. I sat there, staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. My girlfriend had not only publicly humiliated me and disappeared with her ex, she'd given him permission to use my car, which he'd then crashed. The humiliation was evolving into something else, something harder and colder and infinitely more dangerous. Rage. I called in sick for the rest of the week and spent the time planning, not plotting revenge, not yet, but planning my next moves. I needed information, I needed leverage, and most importantly, I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. The internet is a beautiful thing when you know how to use it. My IT background gave me skills that most people didn't have, and I put those skills to work. Social media accounts, public records, cross-referenced photos and timestamps. Within 48 hours, I had a comprehensive picture of what Tara and Dave had been up to. They'd been in contact for weeks before the festival. Text messages, phone calls, social media interactions, all hidden from me, but visible to anyone who knew where to look. The festival hadn't been a chance encounter, it had been a planned reunion. I found photos of them together from the weekend after the festival. Not just the restaurant dinner, but a whole series of activities. A morning hike, lunch at a cafe downtown, shopping at the mall. They'd been playing house while I sat in my apartment, wondering what I'd done wrong. But the real revelation came when I dug deeper into Dave's background. The gym owner with the perfect smile and the bulging biceps had some interesting secrets, like the fact that his gym was 3 months behind on rent, like the complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau about his business practices, like the small claims court cases from clients who'd been overcharged or had their memberships extended without permission. Dave Keller wasn't just a muscle-bound asshole. He was a muscle-bound asshole with serious financial problems. And according to the public records I'd found, he was also married. The marriage license was dated 18 months ago. Dave Keller and Rebecca Martinez wed in a small ceremony in Las Vegas. No divorce decree on file, no separation agreement, just a marriage that apparently still existed while Dave played house with my girlfriend. I sat back in my chair, staring at the marriage certificate on my computer screen. This changed everything. Tara thought she was trading up for a successful businessman with his own gym and no attachments. Instead, she'd hitched her wagon to a failing entrepreneur who was cheating on his wife. The irony was delicious. My phone buzzed, a text from Tara. "Can we please talk? I'll bring your keys." I looked at the message for a long time before responding. "Tomorrow, 7 p.m., my place." "Thank you, I know we can work this out." Work this out. Like this was a simple misunderstanding that could be resolved with a heartfelt conversation and maybe some makeup sex. She had no idea what was coming. I spent the rest of the evening preparing, not just gathering my evidence, but preparing myself mentally for what needed to happen next. The old Rick, the one who'd slunk away from the festival with his tail between his legs, was gone. In his place was someone harder. Someone who'd learned that being nice and accommodating and understanding only got you humiliated in front of hundreds of people. If Tara wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real player looked like. The humiliation's hangover was finally lifting. And underneath it, I found something I'd forgotten I possessed: the will to fight back. Tara arrived at 7 p.m. sharp, looking like she was heading to a job interview. Conservative blouse, pressed slacks, minimal makeup, the complete opposite of her festival appearance. She was trying to project respectability, responsibility, the image of someone who'd made a simple mistake and was ready to make amends. Too little, too late. "Hi," she said, hovering in my doorway like she wasn't sure she'd be invited in. "Come in." I stepped aside, noting how she clutched her purse with both hands. Nervous. Good. She perched on the edge of my couch, back straight, ankles crossed. Rick, I owe you an apology. For which part? The question seemed to catch her off guard. For what happened at the festival. I was drunk, and I said something stupid. I hurt your feelings, and I'm sorry. Hurt my feelings. Like I was a child who'd been teased on the playground. What about after the festival? What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed her the restaurant photo. Her face went pale. I can explain. Can you explain this too? I showed her another photo, this one from their hiking trip, then another from their shopping expedition. Rick, please. And this? I pulled up Dave's marriage certificate on my laptop and turned the screen toward her. The color drained completely from her face. What is that? Dave's marriage license, 18 months old, no divorce decree on file. I closed the laptop. Congratulations, Tara. You're the other woman. She stared at me, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. That's not... He said he was single. He said he lied. Just like you lied. I never lied to you. Really? When you said you didn't know Dave was coming to the festival? When you said nothing happened between you two? When you gave him permission to use my car? I stood up, towering over her for once. My car that he crashed, by the way. She fumbled in her purse and pulled out my keys, setting them on the coffee table like an offering. He said he'd pay for the repairs. With what money? His gym is 3 months behind on rent. Another shock. She really hadn't done her homework before jumping into bed with her ex. How do you know all this? I'm good with computers, remember? You might have mentioned that to Dave. The intellectual type. Wasn't that how you described me? Tara's composure was cracking. The put-together woman who'd walked through my door was dissolving into someone desperate and cornered. Rick, I made a mistake, a huge mistake, but we can fix this, We? I laughed, and the sound was harsh even to my own ears. There is no we anymore, Tara. You made sure of that when you climbed onto your married ex-boyfriend's shoulders and announced to the world that he was better than me. I was drunk. You were honest. Drunk words, sober thoughts. Isn't that how the saying goes? She started crying then, real tears that smeared her carefully applied mascara. A week ago, those tears would have broken my heart. Now they just annoyed me. Please, she whispered. I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of having a backup plan. Someone safe and reliable to fall back on when your exciting choices don't work out. I walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot where my damaged car sat. But I'm not your backup plan anymore. What are you saying? I turned back to face her. I'm saying we're done, permanently. And I'm saying that if you think you can humiliate me in public and then waltz back here like nothing happened, you're about to learn otherwise. Something in my tone must have warned her because she stopped crying and looked at me with sudden wariness. What do you mean? I mean that actions have consequences, Tara. You've spent the last week playing house with a married man while his wife thinks he's working late at the gym. You've made me a laughingstock in front of half the city. You've cost me money and damaged my property. I smiled, and it felt cold on my face. Now it's my turn. She stood up quickly. Rick, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Because the nice guy you've been walking all over, he's gone. And the person standing here now doesn't believe in turning the other cheek. Tara backed toward the door. This isn't you. You're not vindictive. You're right, I wasn't. But you changed that. She reached for the door handle, then paused. What are you going to do? I'm going to give you the same thing you gave me at that festival, a public education. The door slammed behind her, and I was alone with my plans. If revenge is a dish best served cold, I was about to open an ice cream parlor. The first phase began the next morning. I'd done my homework on Dave's gym, and I knew his schedule. He opened at 5 a.m. for the early morning crowd, then usually took a break around 9 when things slowed down. That gave me a window. I'd also done my homework on his sound system. Like most small business owners, Dave had cut corners where he thought no one would notice. His audio setup was controlled by a basic computer running outdated software with default passwords. Child's play for someone with my skills. Getting into the gym was easier than I'd expected. Dave was in his office, probably trying to figure out how to pay his rent, and the few early members were focused on their workouts. I slipped into the equipment room where the audio controls were located and got to work. The beauty of my plan was its simplicity. I'd found several voicemails Tara had left me over the past few months, late-night, wine-fueled confessions about her fantasies and desires, intimate details about what she wanted to do and have done to her. At the time, they'd been exciting. Now they were ammunition. I'd edited the recordings carefully, removing my responses and splicing together Dave's name from various sources. The result was a series of audio clips that sounded like Tara describing, in graphic detail, her sexual encounters with Dave. Her voice, her words, but arranged to maximum embarrassing effect. The clips were loaded into the gym's system, set to play during the peak morning rush. I was back in my car by 9:15, just as the first wave of confused laughter started drifting from the building. Phase 1, complete. I drove to a coffee shop across the street and waited. Within minutes, people started emerging from the gym, some laughing, others looking scandalized. A few were holding up their phones, clearly recording whatever was happening inside. My phone buzzed with notifications as the audio clips hit social media. Someone had live-streamed the whole thing, and the video was already being shared across platforms. The comments were brutal. Is this for real? That gym owner's girlfriend is wild. This is why you don't date crazy chicks. Rip Dave's business lol. Dave himself appeared in the doorway around 9:30, his face red with either embarrassment or rage, probably both. He was shouting at someone inside, gesturing wildly. A few remaining gym members filed past him, shaking their heads and canceling their memberships on their phones. But I wasn't done. Phase 1 was just the appetizer. That evening, I put Phase 2 into motion. Tara worked for an event planning company that specialized in corporate functions and charity galas. Their biggest client was Morrison Industries, a local manufacturing company that prided itself on family values and community involvement. They were hosting their annual charity auction the following night, an event Tara had been planning for months. Morrison Industries had rented the side of the downtown Marriott for promotional purposes, planning to project their corporate logo and event information onto the building's facade. What they got instead was a carefully curated slideshow of Tara and Dave's romantic adventures, sourced from social media and edited for maximum impact. I'd positioned myself across the street with a perfect view of the building. At exactly 8 p.m., as the charity auction was beginning inside, the slideshow began. Photo after photo of Tara and Dave together, interspersed with screenshots of their flirtatious social media exchanges and text messages I'd recovered from Tara's cloud backup. The piece de resistance was the final image. Dave's marriage certificate, blown up to billboard size with the caption, "Some people just know how to live life to the fullest." The reaction was immediate. People on the street stopped to stare and take photos. Someone called the hotel, and within minutes, security was trying to figure out how to shut down the projection. But I'd routed the signal through multiple encrypted servers, making it nearly impossible to trace or stop quickly. My phone exploded with notifications. The charity auction attendees, including Tara's boss and Morrison Industries executives, were posting about the technical malfunction that had turned their elegant fundraiser into a public scandal. I could only imagine Tara's face when she realized what was happening. Phase 2, complete. But I still wasn't finished. The final phase required more preparation and perfect timing. I spent the next day gathering supplies and setting up surveillance around Dave's gym. He'd managed to get the audio system fixed, but the damage was done. His membership was hemorrhaging, and his reputation was in tatters. More importantly, his wife had seen the social media posts. I knew this because I'd taken the liberty of sending her anonymous copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. Photos, text messages, social media posts, everything that proved her husband was cheating. I'd included a helpful note. Thought you should know what your husband does while you're at work. Rebecca Martinez, soon to be Rebecca Martinez, Keller, soon to be Martinez, again, had not taken the news well. According to the police report I'd accessed through public records, she'd shown up at the gym around noon and created what officers diplomatically described as a domestic disturbance. Dave's day was getting worse by the hour. That evening, I put the final phase into motion. I'd discovered that Dave kept his car, my former car, now repaired at his expense, in the parking lot behind his gym. The lot was poorly lit and rarely monitored, making it perfect for my purposes. I waited until after midnight, then got to work. Fish heads from the seafood market distributed strategically throughout the car's interior. Superglue applied to the door handles and locks. And finally, a large sign zip-tied to the rear bumper. Not so tall now, are you? But the car was just the opening act. The real finale was yet to come. I'd spent hours studying the gym's layout and security systems. Dave lived in an apartment above the business, convenient for someone who couldn't afford separate commercial and residential rent. The building's fire escape provided easy access to the roof, and from there, it was a simple matter of accessing the ventilation system. I wasn't planning anything dangerous or illegal, just memorable. The smoke bombs were theatrical grade, designed to produce massive amounts of harmless but dramatic colored smoke. I'd positioned them throughout the gym's ductwork, connected to timers set to activate during the next morning's peak hours. At exactly 6 a.m., Dave's gym would be transformed into a rainbow-colored fog bank, complete with a chemical smell that would linger for days. Between the lingering audio scandal, the social media humiliation, his wife's divorce proceedings, and now this final insult, Dave's business would be finished. And Tara? She'd wake up to discover that her upgrade had turned into a complete disaster. I was back in my apartment by 2 a.m., exhausted but satisfied. My phone showed dozens of missed calls from Tara and several angry voicemails from Dave. I deleted them all without listening. Tomorrow, the whole city would wake up to the conclusion of my revenge trilogy. The man who'd stolen my girlfriend and crashed my car would be left with nothing but debt and humiliation. The woman who'd publicly declared him better than her husband would learn exactly what kind of man she'd chosen. As for me, I'd proven that the quiet, intellectual type could fight back when pushed too far. I poured myself a whiskey and raised the glass in a toast to my reflection in the dark window. Here's to consequences, I said aloud. Outside, the city slept, unaware that tomorrow would bring the final act of the most satisfying revenge plot I'd ever executed. The underdog's awakening was complete. I woke up to my phone buzzing like an angry hornet. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and enough social media notifications to crash a server. The smoke bomb finale had exceeded my expectations. The first video I watched showed Dave's gym at 6:30 a.m., billowing rainbow-colored smoke like a psychedelic volcano. The second showed Dave himself, standing in the parking lot in his underwear and a t-shirt, screaming at the fire department while his ruined car sat behind him like a modern art installation. The comments were pure gold. "This is better than Netflix. Someone really pissed off the wrong person. That gym owner's having the worst week ever. Plot twist, the husband fights back." But the real entertainment was in my text messages. Dave had sent a series of increasingly unhinged threats, starting with, "I know this was you," and escalating to, "You're going to pay for this, you little shit." Tara's messages were more desperate than angry. "Rick, please call me. This has gone too far. People are getting hurt." People were getting hurt. The irony was beautiful. Pete showed up at my door around noon with coffee and the expression that mixed admiration with concern. "Dude," he said, handing me a cup, "the whole city's talking about this. Dave's gym is finished, like completely destroyed." "Shame," I said, not bothering to hide my satisfaction. "And Tara got fired." That stopped me cold. "What?" "Morrison Industries pulled their contract with her company. Something about reputational damage and unprofessional conduct. Her boss had to let her go to keep the other clients happy. I'd expected Dave to suffer. I'd wanted him to lose everything, but Tara losing her job, that felt bigger than I'd intended. "She's been calling everyone, trying to do damage control," Pete continued. "But the story's everywhere. Someone even made a TikTok compilation of all the revenge pranks. It's got like 500,000 views. 500,000 views. My private war had gone viral. Rick, I gotta ask, are you done? Because this is getting pretty intense." I looked out my window toward downtown, where Dave's gym sat empty and probably condemned. Where Tara was likely sitting in her apartment, unemployed and humiliated, wondering how her life had imploded so completely. "Yeah," I said, "I'm done." But the universe, apparently, wasn't done with me. That evening, as I was settling in with takeout Chinese and a beer, someone pounded on my door. Not knocked, pounded, like they were trying to break it down. I looked through the peephole and saw Dave, still in his gym clothes, face red with rage. Behind him stood two other men I didn't recognize, both built like they lived in weight rooms. "Open the door, Rick," Dave shouted. "We need to talk." I considered calling the police, but something in his voice suggested this was more desperation than genuine threat. Against my better judgment, I opened the door but kept the chain latch engaged. "What do you want, Dave?" "I want my life back." He was breathing hard, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool evening air. "You've destroyed everything, my business, my marriage, my reputation, everything." "Sounds familiar," I said calmly. "That's exactly what you and Tara did to me." "That was different. That was just..." "Just what? Just a joke? Just harmless fun?" I let some steel creep into my voice. "Tell me, Dave, how does it feel to be the entertainment?" One of his friends, a massive guy with arms like tree trunks, stepped forward. "Just say the word, Dave. We'll straighten this out." I looked at Tree Trunks, then back at Dave. "You brought muscle to threaten me? Really? That's your solution?" "I brought friends to help me get through to you," Dave said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Rick, I'm asking you, man, to call this off." "Call what off? I haven't done anything illegal, haven't threatened anyone, haven't destroyed anyone's property." I smiled. "I've just shared some information, made some artistic statements, exercised my right to free speech." "You ruined my gym." "Your gym ruined itself. I just helped speed up the process." Dave's face was getting redder. "My wife left me." "Your wife found out you were cheating. I just made sure she had all the facts." "Tara lost her job." "Tara lost her job because her behavior reflected poorly on her employer. Actions have consequences, Dave. I thought a successful businessman like yourself would understand that." He stared at me through the gap in the door, and for a moment I saw something break behind his eyes. The cocky gym owner who'd lifted my girlfriend onto his shoulders was gone. In his place was a broken man facing bankruptcy, divorce, and social exile. Almost, I felt sorry for him. Almost. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "To make this stop. What do you want?" "I want you to understand what you did to me," I said. "I want you to know how it feels to be humiliated in front of everyone you know. I want you to experience the consequences of treating other people like they don't matter." Okay, I get it. I was an asshole. I'm sorry. "Is that what you want to hear?" "It's a start." Dave looked back at his friends, then at me. "If I apologize, publicly, will you leave us alone?" "Us?" "Me and Tara. We're both paying for this. She's lost everything, too. I considered this. A public apology would be satisfying, but it wouldn't undo what they'd done. And honestly, I was getting tired of the whole thing. The revenge had been satisfying, but it was also exhausting. Fine, I said. Public apology, social media, full admission of what you did and how it was wrong, both of you. Deal. I was about to close the door when Tree Trunk spoke up again. What if he doesn't want to apologize? What if he wants to handle this a different way? The threat was clear. Dave might be broken, but his friends still believed in the power of intimidation. Then he'd be making another mistake, I said, looking directly at Tree Trunks. See, the thing about being good with computers is that you learn to prepare for contingencies. Right now, there are files sitting on secure servers, set to automatically release if anything happens to me. Photos, financial records, personal information about everyone involved in this little drama. I smiled. Your information too, Marcus. Did you know your parole officer might be interested in knowing you're making threats? Tree Trunks, Marcus, stepped back like I'd slapped him. How did you? I'm very thorough. Just ask Dave. Dave grabbed Marcus's arm. We're done here. Come on. They left without another word, and I watched from my window as they drove away in what looked like Marcus's pickup truck. My hands were shaking slightly. The confrontation had been more intense than I'd let on, but I felt oddly satisfied. The next morning brought the promised apologies. Dave posted a long, rambling confession on Facebook, admitting to cheating on his wife, stealing my girlfriend, and treating me with disrespect. He took full responsibility for the festival incident and asked for forgiveness from everyone he'd hurt. Tara's apology was shorter, but more heartfelt. She admitted to betraying my trust, publicly humiliating me, and making choices that hurt everyone involved. She ended with a simple statement. Rick deserved better than what I gave him. I'm sorry. The comments on both posts were mixed. Some people praised them for taking responsibility. Others called the apologies too little, too late. A few suggested that I was the real villain for taking my revenge too far. I didn't care about the comments. The war was over, and I'd won. Or so I thought. That afternoon, as I was grocery shopping, I ran into Rebecca Martinez in the produce section. Dave's soon-to-be ex-wife was a small woman with tired eyes and graying hair, but there was steel in her spine. You're Rick, aren't you? She said without preamble. Yes. I wanted to thank you. That caught me off guard. For what? For showing me who my husband really was. I suspected he was cheating, but I didn't have proof. What you did, it gave me the evidence I needed for the divorce. She selected a bag of apples, examining each one carefully. Dave thinks he's the victim in all this. Poor Dave, whose life got ruined by the mean computer guy. But you know what? He did this to himself. He made the choices. You just made sure everyone could see them. I'm sorry you got caught up in this. Don't be. I'm better off without him. She smiled, and it transformed her entire face. In fact, I'm thinking about opening my own business. A yoga studio, maybe. Something peaceful. That sounds nice. It does, doesn't it? She paused, studying me. You know, Tara came to see me yesterday. She did? Wanted to apologize for sleeping with my husband. Seemed genuinely sorry, actually. Said she didn't know he was married. I found that hard to believe, but I didn't say so. She also said she loved you, Rebecca continued. Said she made the biggest mistake of her life when she chose Dave over you. Too late for that. Is it? Rebecca's smile was knowing. People make mistakes, Rick. Big, stupid, hurtful mistakes. The question is whether they learn from them. She walked away, leaving me standing in the produce section with more questions than answers. That evening, Tara called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Rick? Her voice was small, uncertain. What do you want, Tara? I wanted to thank you. For destroying your life? For showing me who I really was. She was quiet for a moment. I saw Rebecca today, Dave's wife. She's a good person. Kind. Loyal. Everything I should have been. I didn't respond. I keep thinking about that night at the festival. She continued. How proud I was, sitting on Dave's shoulders, feeling like I was better than everyone else. Better than you. Her voice cracked. I was so stupid, Rick, so incredibly stupid. Yeah, you were. I know you'll probably never forgive me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I needed you to know that I understand now. What I did to you, what I chose, it was the worst decision of my life. And what do you want me to do with that information? Nothing. I needed to say it. The line went quiet. I could hear her breathing, could picture her sitting in her apartment, unemployed and alone, facing the wreckage of her choices. Tara? Yes? Don't call me again. I hung up and turned off my phone. The war was over. I'd won. Dave was ruined, Tara was broken, and I'd proven that the quiet guy could fight back when pushed too far. So why didn't I feel better? Outside my window, the city continued its nightly rhythm, unaware that one small drama had played itself out to its logical conclusion. Tomorrow, there would be new scandals, new entertainment, new stories to distract everyone from the wreckage of 3 lives. But tonight, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by the silence of complete victory, and wondered if winning had been worth the cost. The answer, I realized, didn't matter anymore. It was done. 3 weeks passed in relative peace. The social media storm had moved on to other targets. Dave's gym sat empty with a for lease sign in the window, and Tara had apparently found a job at a small marketing firm in the suburbs. Life, it seemed, was returning to normal. That's when I discovered Dave was planning something big. It started with Pete mentioning that he'd seen Dave around town, looking better than expected for someone whose life had imploded. Not broken and defeated, but focused, determined, like a man with a plan. My curiosity got the better of me, so I did what I did best. I started digging. What I found made my blood run cold. Dave hadn't just been wallowing in self-pity, he'd been planning his own revenge. Through social media surveillance and some creative hacking, I discovered that Dave had been meeting with a group of his former gym clients. Guys who'd lost their memberships when his business collapsed. Guys who blamed me for ruining their workout routine. He'd convinced them that I was some kind of cyber terrorist who'd destroyed an innocent business over a harmless joke. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. They were going to humiliate me the same way I'd humiliated them, in public, in front of as many people as possible. The venue was the monthly Tech Talk presentation I gave at the downtown library, where I discussed internet security for small business owners. 40 to 50 people usually attended, including several local reporters who covered technology issues. Dave's plan was to interrupt my presentation with a confrontation, accusing me of cyber-stalking and harassment. His friends would back him up, creating a scene that would be recorded and shared across social media. The goal was to paint me as an unstable obsessive who'd gone too far in pursuing a petty grudge. The beauty of the plan was that it contained just enough truth to be believable. I had 2 choices: cancel the presentation and look like a coward, or show up and face whatever Dave had planned. I chose option 3. If Dave wanted a public confrontation, I'd give him one, but it would be on my terms, not his. The first step was reconnaissance. I needed to know exactly who was involved and what they were planning. A few strategic social media friend requests from fake accounts gave me access to their group chat, where they'd been planning their intervention in embarrassing detail. The second step was preparation. If they wanted to make me look like an unstable cyberstalker, I'd need evidence to prove otherwise. Fortunately, I'd been documenting everything from the beginning. Screenshots, recordings, timestamps, the works. I had a complete record of Dave and Tara's betrayal, their lies, and the damage they'd caused. The third step was setting the stage. I called the library and requested a change of venue, citing expected higher attendance. They moved the presentation to the main auditorium, which held 200 people and had professional audio-visual equipment. I also reached out to my contact at the local newspaper, suggesting they might want to cover a story about cyber revenge and its consequences. By the time the evening arrived, I'd turned Dave's ambush into my own carefully orchestrated finale. The auditorium was packed. Word had spread through social media that something big was going to happen at the boring tech guy's presentation, and people had shown up expecting entertainment. Local reporters were scattered throughout the crowd, cameras ready. I started with my usual presentation about internet security, but I could see Dave and his crew sitting in the third row, checking their phones and waiting for their moment. They looked confident, like hunters who'd cornered their prey. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. 15 minutes into my presentation, Dave stood up. "Excuse me," he said loudly, interrupting my explanation of password security. "I think the audience deserves to know who they're really listening to." The crowd turned to look at him, and I saw phones come out to record what was about to happen. Perfect. "I'm sorry," I said calmly. "Did you have a question about internet security?" "I have a question about cyber stalking and harassment," Dave replied, his voice carrying clearly through the auditorium. "About what happens when someone with computer skills decides to destroy innocent people's lives over a personal grudge." Murmurs rippled through the audience. This was the drama they'd come to see. "That's an interesting topic," I said, clicking to the next slide in my presentation. "Let's discuss it." The slide showed a timeline of events, starting with the festival photo of Tara on Dave's shoulders. The audience gasped as they recognized the viral image that had dominated local social media weeks earlier. "This is the story of what happens when people think actions don't have consequences," I continued, my voice steady and professional. "When they believe they can humiliate others for entertainment without facing any repercussions." Dave's confident expression was starting to crack. This wasn't going according to his script. 3 weeks ago, I continued, clicking to the next slide, my girlfriend publicly declared that her ex-boyfriend was taller and better than her husband in front of hundreds of people. The crowd laughed, the band made jokes, videos were shared across social media platforms. The next slide showed screenshots of the social media posts, the memes, the comments mocking me. The audience was riveted. The question became, what do you do when someone humiliates you in public? When they steal your girlfriend and crash your car? When they turn your pain into entertainment? I looked directly at Dave. Do you just accept it? Or do you respond? Dave stood up again, his face red. You destroyed my business. You ruined my marriage. You went way too far. Did I? I clicked to the next slide, which showed Dave's marriage certificate alongside photos of him with Tara. I shared publicly available information. I exposed lies and deception. I made sure people knew the truth about what kind of person they were dealing with. The audience was completely silent now, absorbed in this real-life drama playing out before them. Let's talk about consequences, I continued. Dave lost his business, a business that was already failing due to his own poor management and unethical practices. The next slide showed the Better Business Bureau complaints and unpaid rent notices. He lost his wife because she discovered he was cheating on her. He lost his reputation because people learned who he really was. Dave's friends were shifting uncomfortably in their seats. This public humiliation wasn't going the way they'd planned. And Tara lost her job because her employer decided that someone who would publicly humiliate their partner for laughs might not represent their company's values appropriately. I clicked to the final slide, which showed a simple question. Who is really the victim here? The man who was humiliated in public for trying to trust someone he loved, or the people who are now facing the consequences of their own choices? Dave was standing in the aisle now, his hands clenched into fists. You're a psychopath, You stalked us! You harassed us! I responded proportionally to the harm you caused, I interrupted. You made my humiliation public entertainment. I made your behavior public knowledge. You destroyed my relationship and damaged my property. I exposed your lies and deceptions. The crowd was starting to murmur, and not in Dave's favor. His plan to paint me as an unstable stalker was backfiring spectacularly. The real question, I continued, is what happens next? Do we escalate this further? Do we continue this cycle of revenge and counter-revenge? Or do we accept that actions have consequences and move forward? I looked directly at Dave and his friends. I'm done. My point has been made. The question is, are you? Dave stared at me for a long moment, his face cycling through anger, humiliation, and finally, defeat. He could see the crowd's reaction, could feel the shift in sympathy. His grand plan to destroy me had become his own public humiliation. This isn't over, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Yes, it is, I replied calmly. It's been over for weeks. You just didn't realize it yet. Dave and his friends filed out of the auditorium, their exit accompanied by scattered applause from the audience. The reporters were furiously taking notes, and phones were recording every moment. I finished my presentation with a discussion about the ethics of online behavior and the importance of thinking before you post. The audience was engaged and thoughtful, asking serious questions about digital responsibility and consequences. Afterward, several people approached me to shake hands and express support. The local newspaper reporter asked for an interview about proportional response in the digital age. A woman from the library board mentioned that they'd had record attendance and wondered if I'd consider making this a regular series. But the most surprising visitor was waiting for me in the parking lot. Tara stood by my car, looking smaller and more fragile than I remembered. She'd cut her hair shorter and was wearing clothes I didn't recognize, more conservative, more professional. She looked like someone who'd learned hard lessons. That was quite a show, she said as I approached. Did Dave send you? Dave doesn't know I'm here. He doesn't know I was in the audience. She looked back toward the library. I heard he was planning something, and I couldn't let him do it. So you came to warn me? I came to stop him if I had to, but you didn't need my help. She smiled sadly. You never did you? You were always smarter than all of us. I unlocked my car but didn't get in. What do you want, Tara? To apologize. Again. And to tell you that you were right. She wrapped her arms around herself against the cool evening air. About everything. About Dave, about me, about the consequences of our choices. And to ask if there's any chance. She trailed off, seeing my expression. No, of course not. I had to ask. You made your choice, Tara. At that festival, in front of all those people. You chose Dave over me. Excitement over stability, the moment over the future. I opened my car door. I'm not your backup plan. I know that now. She stepped back as I got into the car. For what it's worth, Rick, you deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved better than me. Yeah, I said, starting the engine. I did. I drove away without looking back, leaving Tara standing alone in the parking lot under the streetlights. In my rearview mirror, I could see her getting smaller and smaller until she disappeared entirely. The final gambit was complete. Dave's last desperate attempt at revenge had become his final humiliation. Tara's last desperate attempt at reconciliation had been firmly rejected. The war that had started with a thoughtless comment at a music festival was finally, definitively over. And I had won. But as I drove home through the quiet streets, I realized that winning felt different than I'd expected. There was satisfaction, yes, and a sense of justice served. But there was also emptiness, a hollow feeling where the anger and drive for revenge had once burned. For weeks, my life had been focused on this conflict, on proving that actions have consequences, and that the quiet guy could fight back when pushed too far. Now that it was over, I wasn't sure what came next. The answer, I supposed, was whatever I wanted to come next. For the first time in months, the future was entirely mine to choose. 3 days after the storm hit, I sat in my apartment, watching rain streak down the windows, reflecting on how my life had changed in weeks. Then Rebecca, Dave's ex-wife, called at 11 p.m., warning me Dave was drunk, raging, and heading my way with Marcus and 2 others, intent on ending this. I called Pete for backup, asking him to bring his camera. My plan? Live stream the confrontation to expose Dave. Pete arrived in 14 minutes, setting up cameras as I activated the stream. By 11:47 p.m., hundreds were watching. At 11:52, Dave's truck and a sedan pulled up. 4 drunk, angry men approached my building, Dave yelling threats. I stayed calm, warning them through the door that thousands were watching live. The stream hit 2,000 viewers as Dave hesitated, checking his phone to confirm. Rebecca arrived, confronting Dave with fierce authority. Sirens closed in. Viewers had called the police. Faced with exposure and arrest, Dave backed off, muttering, "This isn't over." I replied, "Yes, it is." Police questioned Dave in the rain, issuing warnings for harassment. The stream ended at 12:23 a.m. with 3,147 viewers. By morning, the video went viral, turning Dave into a cautionary tale of failed intimidation. I gave interviews, framing myself as a victim who fought back smartly. 2 cybersecurity firms offered jobs. A literary agent proposed a book deal. 3 days later, Tara visited, admitting her mistake in choosing Dave. "You were always the better man," she said, leaving for good. That evening on my balcony, I toasted to consequences and victory. Dave's life was in ruins. Tara faced her losses. I'd transformed from the humiliated IT guy into someone respected, vindicated, and never to be underestimated again. The war was over. I had won.